I sat hunched over a makeshift desk, quill in hand, scribing upon a parchment the arcane words to a spell called Picklock. It was the fourth one, and I had 21 more to go. It was humid down there in the old tunnels, and my entire body was moist with a mixture of sweat, condensation, and a film of slightly oily residue from the walls and floor of the ancient tunnels. It was the moss, the orange and green moss that grew almost every corner, seam and crevice of the entire system of tunnels which ran the whole length of the city. Scribing scrolls was one of the chores that I, Griffier Caven, agent in charge of the street side division of our guild, the ShadowHand, was responsible for seeing done. Basically, it was my job to supply the agents of our guild, who went out each night or day to procure riches and loot for our guild coffers, with the tools needed to have consistent success in that endeavor. Scrolls were not the most plentiful tool at our disposal, but they were one of the most important. Only 3 of our members had the technical ability to recite arcane script and focus to the degree needed to properly cast spells using a scroll. I had only a mediocre knowledge of scribing the scrolls, having learned about 10 specific spells taught to me by our late Guildmaster, now deceased by way of assassination. I had been on my way to becoming an accomplished scribe, and Guildmaster Tumandu rest his death brought that to an immediate, and as of yet final, halt. I wiped a bead of sweat from my face, which had loosed itself from my graying hairline, and had begun to travel down my forehead, that annoying tickle making me squint my left eye in preparation of the sting that was soon to follow. Where to travel that far? I opened a small round jar on the wooden desktop, taking a pinch of silk root powder I had, unfortunately, become addicted to, and being careful not to get the powder on the surface of the scroll I was scribing. I stuck my pinched fingers to my nose and sharply inhaled with a sniff, clenching my teeth as the painful sting and subsequent throbbing pain of the drug hit me without delay or remorse. Of all the narcotic stimulants known to me, silk root was the most painful to imbibe nasally. Many preferred to smoke it, though that tasted terrible and tended to cause lung issues in long-term users, leading to a painful death by way of lung collapse. Some would eat the powdered root, and still others would chew the natural root, most of the time coating it in a sticky honey and cinnamon mixture called freed. Both of those methods were foul to the palate, and also would cause the user to show signs of their usage through the, over time, yellowing of the lips and teeth. These folk were labeled basilisks, after the famous magical creature, for it was said that the few to have seen a basilisk in a mirror and avoided its ability to turn a man to stone with a stare, that it had bright yellow lips. I'd be damned if I would take on that title, and I didn't have the know-how or ability to cook the root down to the paste which one would need to inject the drug. So, the only other option was through the nose or rectum. I chose to leave my own rectum for its natural use, though I'm sure there were folk who used that method. At any rate, my nostril was on fire, and a strange, very unique smell of silk root assaulted my mind with an accompanying high, which was by far my favorite feeling in life to date. The first sensation, once the initial first 3 minutes of extreme agony subsided, was a rush, the onset of the creomectin fail enthal amphenidastin, the active ingredient in the silk root plant. This occurred in 3 stages. Firstly, there was the heating, almost to uncomfortable temperatures, of the fingertips, toes, soles of the feet, neck, ears, and surprisingly, the eyes. That part was not my favorite, as it was not overly pleasant, but it was short-lived, and the next stage was worth the mild discomfort. The second stage was experienced by feelings of reassurance and confidence in the mind, produced by the release of, in humans, serotonin, dopamine, and dimethyltryptamine. The subsequent connection to the weave of magic, largely thanks to the dimethyltryptamine, was accompanied by a rush in the body, making up the third stage. I can only describe the rush as being similar to having one's wind knocked out, then being pushed from a cliff towards the ground far below, only to catch one's breath just in time to hit the dirt. But instead of pain, one would feel as if they landed from a great flight, like an albatross landing on a rock just off the shore. It was at that point that one would feel extremely focused and strong of mind, body, and spirit, and the senses were heightened to very high degrees. Those of sight, smell, taste, and hearing were of an increased level like that of the difference between an elf's senses and that of a human. It was at this so-called landing point that I heard a knock at my chamber door, as it echoed through the cavernous tunnels which surrounded my domicile. "Come," said I, and the thick metal door opened, revealing a familiar figure standing just beyond. It was Thaddeus Wren, one of my more trusted subordinates. He was lean, yet stocky somehow, with a boyish face despite his age being in his mid-30s. He took a step into the room and said,
"Sir, there's a meeting called, and all are to attend. I know that you are very busy, but Master Fern has told me specifically to make sure you come, and with haste, for we are already going to be late getting there."
"Gods damn it," said I, for he was correct. I was very busy. "All right, Thad, allow me a moment, won't you?" And he nodded once and backed out the door, swinging it shut with a clang. I then allowed myself a moment of time to allow the silk root to finish taking hold, which only took moments. I felt good now, focused and aware, and strong of body as well. I then gathered my pack, my sword, and made way for the door. It was a long walk through the old sewage tunnels to reach the meeting hall. We were forced to take the long way, as one of the older, more frequently used tunnels had collapsed sometime recently. Thaddeus kept pace just behind me, as he was expected to do. A long distance between us and these old tunnels was a bad idea. Far too many rats and other sewer vermin used separation of their prey to make the kill. We weren't especially worried about that though, for both of us were accomplished warriors in our own right. We took the old chancel tunnel, which led underneath the Yulin's palace. Many times I'd wished for a way to use that tunnel to actually make way into the palace, but they had been sealed long ago. I asked Thaddeus what the meeting was called about, but he didn't know anything. I was pondering just what Guildmaster Fern was up to. I knew him better than most, and secrecy was his favorite tactic. He was going to have something epic to report to us all. That I knew, but just what was anyone's guess. As we approached the meeting hall, which was really just a nexus point where many of the tunnels met, built as a great expanse of open space, lighted by torches and reverberating voices like a cathedral would. We could hear the crowd of over 100 of our guildsmen congregated there. We were late, and the meeting had already begun, and as we entered the nexus, we did our best to do so unnoticed. A thin man, dressed in the garb of a shadow thief, all black, tattered clothing meant to help one blend in with the shadows at night, was speaking. I knew him well, and he was a friend of mine. Grayson Mahardley, he was called. The rest of our guild brothers were listening intently to what Grayson was saying, as he was well respected in our guild. He'd earned the respect he got many times over, and I could rightly say that he'd saved my life on more than one occasion, as he did for many of the other members of our guild.
And so, why would we not be interested in this drow woman, fellows? Do we not have a vested interest in the comings and goings of the Dark Elf traders here in Selgaunt? Do we not take an active role in the flow of goods, whether they be illicit or legit? We do. Yes, fellows, that
Of
we
course
do.
we do.
Agreed,
Yes,
Grayson,
we
most
do.
fully.
Yes, fully agreed. Indeed. I second that.
Yes, fully agreed indeed.
Absolutely. Well, then, my friends, if this is true, then why are we not already interrogating this dark elf bitch and determining what business she has with the Hewler? For it was obvious by Agent Gallo's report that she carried with her a mysterious box containing within some kind of magical item of extreme power.
It was then that another voice rose above the hum of voices and shuffling feet, challenging Grayson's words.
Those are just conjectures at this point, Grayson. We have no proof that the box contains anything, just the word of a low-ranking pickpocket who only just got granted permission to work on her own. She's no spy or accomplished guildmate. No, she's not much more than a street urchin at this point.
This incited laughter from many of the other people in the crowd, which I thought foolish. What was so funny? The man who had spoken up was a higher-ranking thief and assassin named Toman Bandreldat, and I'd never liked him overmuch. It was at that point that the Guildmaster decided to interject. Guildmaster Fern was an imposing figure, and didn't have the same style or gait of the majority of our dark and shadowy brethren. He was finely dressed, in attire befitting nobility, as he always was, and when he spoke, he did so with an air of regal stature.
Come now, my fellow hands, let us all just slow down a moment. We will go about this methodically, not argumentatively. What good does it do to belittle and berate one another? Now, let us all be on the same page. Yes, is the girl here, the operative who discovered the box?
Hi, where's the girl? Let's hear from her.
Is she here? Who is she?
Is she here?
And after a few more moments, a young woman, maybe the age of 16 or 17 winters, came forth from within the crowd. She was very pretty, and was on her way to becoming a beautiful woman, but she still had the look of a child in her face and eyes.
I am here, Grandmaster Fern.
She said, without shyness, but with a measure of humility.
So here we are. My dear, what is your name?
I am Gemma, sir. Gemma Durante.
Gemma Durante, the very same who had a father of that same last name.
I am Master Fern. That is so. He died. Not long ago.
Yes, of that I heard. The scepters cut him down on the road to Selgaunt, a shame. He was one of our best guildsmen.
To this, the girl simply looked down towards her feet, a tear beginning to roll down her cheek.
Now, Gemma, none of that. We are a strong lot, here in the hand. Save your tears for private times and look me in the eyes when I speak at you.
She wiped the solitary tear from her face and looked up to meet his gaze.
Good girl. Now, I find it hard to believe that one so young as you, what say 17 winters, was given a spot on the mansion job. So, and be honest, Gemma, when you answer, how is it you came to spy upon the Dark Elf woman? And how did you get so close as to see the box?
Well, Master Fern, you want my honesty, and so you shall have it. I didn't get the job by assignment, but instead I won it, playing Goblin's Knuckles. If it is okay, I'd like to keep the other party involved off the record and not to be named here.
I will allow that this time. I'm sure the other party will be made apparent in the next few hours. Go on, my dear.
All right, sir. As I said, I won the assignment playing a game of Goblin's Knuckles. I don't know why, sir, that I wanted to go on that job so badly. I think it was, to be completely honest, that I wanted to see all the fine noble women and handsome noblemen in their most stylish and beautiful attire.
It is quite all right, Miss Durante. You need not worry, for you are not in trouble, and nor will you be getting into trouble for your stunt. As you haven't learnt yet, but may so one day soon, our guildsmen are praised for their ingenuity and willingness to take risks. Perhaps that will ease your story along and allow you to open up completely, like you just did. We are a family here, Miss Durante, Gemma. You are amongst family.
To this, Gemma smiled, a beautiful and disarming smile, and said,
Thank you, Master Fern, that actually does help. Well, so, there I was at the ball, having been dressed up in costume. That of a servant wench. I was assigned by the Hulorn's management staff to serve the main floor, probably because of my looks, for I know nothing of how to talk to noble folk. My section of the floor was the main dance floor, and the Hulorn's court, who were all seated in a circle around the fat, gross pig.
This drew laughter briefly up from our guildmates, as what she was saying was purely true. We all knew that. After a moment, she went on.
Anyhow, one of my trips to serve one of those old fops a drink brought me very close to the Hulorn's lounge. And when I passed by that first time, I thought I'd seen, or well, I felt like maybe I was seeing things actually. But I thought I'd seen a dark elf woman, sitting very close to the Hulorn, showing him some strange and ugly box. It made me feel odd.
Master Fern held up a hand to pause the girl then.
Wait one moment, Gemma, so that I can ask a few important questions. And I want you to think very hard, and as clearly as you can, about the answers, giving me as much detail as possible, and make sure all the rest of our brethren here can hear you as well. The drow, did she have any outstanding markings on her face or arms that you could see?
It's funny you should ask that, Master Fern. For she did indeed have facial markings, though to describe them is very difficult.
As I have said, Gemma, please do your best.
All right. Well, on her cheeks and forehead were markings that appeared like lotus flower petals. And then leaves or more petals on her long, skinny neck. The patterns continued down her arms, breasts, nipples, and well, sir, everything else. For she was completely naked, and seemed to show no bashfulness about it. The Hulorn was, well, touching her, sir, in a way that I cannot repeat aloud, for it was vulgar and wrong.
You need not repeat it, my dear. I'm sorry you had to witness such a thing at your young age. Though, I am also going to tell you that it is likely you will witness much more depravity and wrongness in your years to come, Gemma. So do not think you are going to remain innocent forever. Welcome the darkness that accompanies the light. That is the way of a good thief. Now, please, continue.
All right, sir. She, the drow woman, had just as I watched, put the box down next to her so the Hulorn could. Well, so he could lift her to his mouth. I forced my eyes from the sight. It was so disgusting. I took as good a look as I could at the box. It was evil, I could see that plainly, made of the bones and wing tissue of a bat, to be sure. There was a bat skull on its front as well, just above the latch. However, sir, there was no keyhole I could see. It physically made me feel nauseous upon sighting, so my guess is that it has some powerful magic upon it, though the Hulorn seemed unaffected by it.
Impressive, Gemma. You have an acute ability to pay close attention to detail, a very important attribute amongst us here in the Hand. I am going to go ahead and surmise that you are correct about the box being enchanted with magic, likely death magic, as is the consensus of our guild mages thus far. The Hulorn is no doubt protected from such magic, as he has a cadre of wizards at his disposal for such matters.
Guildmaster Fern then scanned the crowd, searching. He called out, and it was a moment before I realized he was calling for me.
Griff, are you here? Griff Yerkaven, please come forward.
I'm here, Guildmaster Fern, said I, stepping forward, the crowd making way for me as I did. A number of my fellow guildmates called greetings and catcalls towards me, happy to see my face as so much of my time was spent scribing scrolls, hidden away in my chambers.
Oh, look at there! It's Griff! Hey, mate!
Hey, Griff. Long time no see. Well met, Griff.
Nodding and waving in my slight manner, I made my way up to where Master Fern stood, his shoulders squared at me, a warm look on his face, and he smiled.
Well met, indeed, Griff. I see you are still well liked, even though you hardly must be able to get around to see many folk these days, which would be my fault and my doing, just so you all know that. It is I who keeps poor Griff down there tucked away, and you should all be thankful, for he is the reason half of you are so successful. His scrolls to aid you, of course.
What can I do for you, Guildmaster? Why have you called me for? The girl, Gemma, looked at me then, with her blue-green eyes beginning to water. And then I knew just what Fern was up to, of course. I had been friends with the late Carl Durante, her father.
It is by no mere happenstance that I have called you forth, Griff, as you may have guessed, and the reasons are twofold. The first reason is this. I would have your knowledge of scroll scribing, and of magical duomos in general, to assist Miss Durante here in the furthering of both her skills and training, as I am going to assign her to be your lackey in the following mission I am about to task you to. Secondly, for all here to bear witness, I am going to ask you to publicly scry the contents of the box, as it has been told to me that you are adept at using the scrying stone we keep tucked away here in the lower tunnels.
At this, my eyes widened, for I was sure that nobody had known about my ability with the stone of scrying. Guildmaster Fern seemed unconcerned with my surprise.
Come now, Griff. Did you think I wasn't aware of your abilities with the stone? How much you underestimate my reach, for it is my guild after all. You are all under my command, and my coin supplies you all with your lifestyle and greatly to allows your lives to be so full of richness. For, is the ShadowHand not the most powerful guild in Selgaunt? It is indeed, or have you forgotten who has made this guild so successful? Do not think for a moment that any secrets go unknown to me.
And as he spoke, a young woman in assassin's garb brought forth the stone from the shadows nearby, appearing from seemingly nowhere.
Now, Griff, all I require of you is to scry the box and its contents. This should be a relatively easy task for you, from what my sources have told me.
I took a glance at my lackey, narrowing my eyes, having guessed that he may have been one of these sources the Guildmaster was speaking of. Thaddeus averted his gaze, confirming my suspicions. We would have a long talk later on that night. Very well, Master Fern. I shall do my best to accomplish your command. And the stone was set upon a pedestal in the center of the chamber, awaiting me.